Hi, everyone, and welcome back to Beneath the Surface, the podcast where we dive deeper into the meaning of our experiences to learn and grow from it. Today's episode is going to be inspired by a recent experience that I've had. Basically, without giving any details, but I had to make a major life decision and overcome a lot of my fears to choose the right path for me and stop living for the expectations of others and for a sort of like illusion of safety and start actually living for myself and the things that truly make sense to me. So, on that specific topic, I want to address one first thing that really helped me overcome all the fears that this decision had to carry before I had to make it. So, first of all, I wanted to talk about the fact that I feel like a lot of us feel like we should do something because it's what's expected from us. For instance, we should get a stable job on the long term. We should build a family at a certain age. We should get married at a certain age. We should have a certain social circle. We should reach a certain place on the social scale. And on that question, I feel like it's very important to actually internalize the idea that we actually don't have to anything. We don't have to do anything. I don't owe anything to anyone in this world except for behaving morally and respecting the law. But apart from that, I don't have to anything, right? I don't have the obligation to reach a certain social status. I'm allowed to live a life that is recognized as unworthy for some people. I'm allowed to be poor. I'm allowed to fail. If you have in mind an idea of what a failure is, maybe for you, someone who doesn't get a great job or doesn't build a family before the age of 40 is actually a failure. Well, you have the right to be a failure. That's your life. You don't owe anything to anyone. Matter of fact, you didn't even choose to be there. So you're actually allowed to do whatever you want with this life. And once you understand that, you're relieved from a lot of weight that is actually holding you back from taking the decisions that you need to take and that are good for you. Because if you feel like you don't owe anything to anyone, well, it's easier to choose the path that makes more sense to you because everything's a bonus, right? Nothing is due to you. You don't owe anything to anyone. So everything's a bonus. So for this thing, I really want you to realize that you don't owe the world a great life. You don't have to live a great life. You don't have to change your world. If you feel like, for example, having a degree is an obligation, then it's something that is due to the society and you have to do it. And if you don't do it, you're a failure. But if you do it, it's not even a reward. It's actually just an obligation that you had from the very beginning. So that's the first thing that you need to realize, according to me, to make the right decisions in your life, the ones that actually make sense to you. Now, the second thing I want to talk about is courage as a sport. And what I mean by that is that taking brave decisions isn't easy, right? It's something that's extremely scary. You have to jump in the void and maybe put at risk a lot of stuff that you care for. Even though we consider that we don't owe anyone anything and nothing is that important, everything's a bonus, blah, blah, blah. On paper, we have feelings in practice. And some stuff are important to us. And it's scary to jump in the void. It's scary to take a big life decision. For me, it was changing path, changing country. It's very scary. You have to look at your family in the eyes and see what they think about you, what they think about your decision. Maybe they're going to be judgmental, who knows? But what you have to internalize is that courage is not a trait of personality. People aren't not born with courage in the way that I see it. I used to be extremely scared about making big life decisions. I used to feel this pressure that I needed to do something great, but then that I could not put anything at risk because then if I lose what I already have, then I need to win something even bigger. And all of this mental torment that I was going through was was making it hard for me actually to make good decisions for myself. But what you have to realize is that it's a practice. The more you jump into the scary decisions that you know are going to be good for you, the easier it gets. And that's an extremely important thing that you need to do. Why? Because right now, it might feel like it's a small decision that you need to take. So it's not really that big of a deal if I don't jump in the void. Worst case scenario, I just miss out on a little thing. I don't know. But the day that you come to a point in your life where you need to make a very, very big decision about something that's going to be insanely important for you. For example, like me, making a decision about the path that I want to choose in my life. If I hadn't been training for the past few years about jumping in the void, moving away, choosing to go to a country that I don't know anything about, if I hadn't trained like that before, I would probably not have the ability right now to find the courage to actually make that big life decision. So this training is actually very important. It's the same way as when people tell you you have to lift weights in your 20s, 30s, 40s, so that you make sure that you're actually healthy in your 50s and 60s, and that your muscle mass doesn't decrease too much. It's kind of the same thing here. It's a training. You need to take bold decisions in order for one day, the day you need to actually make a big one, or the day, I don't know, the day you have more responsibilities and even the small decisions feel even scarier, then you actually have the ability to jump in the void. You actually have the ability to forget about what your little voice in your head is saying and just make the decision and deal with the consequences. So one thing that you have to keep in mind, bravery is a skill that you practice. It's not about not being scared, it's about being scared, but doing it anyway. And when people say you have to trust the process, you have to know that everything's going to work out, I know that on paper it sounds great, but not everyone can do that. Me personally, there has been some choices that I've made not knowing if it's going to go great. And just accept that. Maybe it's going to go bad. Maybe something bad's going to happen. Maybe I'm not going to be able to deal with everything, but it's okay. Again, here I'm not talking about anything dangerous, anything that could put your everything you have in danger. I'm talking about decisions in general that are scary. Just keep in mind that you have to, of course, stay at the level of your responsibilities if you have people that you're taking care of, or even for your own life. Like, I'm not talking about making very dangerous decisions, of course. So to give you a bit more of a personal experience on that, because it feels like I'm speaking a lot of theory, but in practice, at the age of 19, I had the opportunity to do an exchange, a semester of exchange abroad. For some context, I'm studying in France, and I had a lot of opportunities, right? I had like almost 500 universities I could choose from. And in a few days, I actually made a crazy decision to go to India for 5 months without knowing anything about the country, without knowing anyone actually in India, without knowing even the name of the city I was going to go through. So on paper, it sounds crazy. My whole family was like, you're 19, you're not going to go and live in India by yourself. You don't know anyone in India. You don't know the culture. You don't know anything about this country. I was like, I don't care. I'm going to prove to myself that I'm able to do that. And I knew that it was scary. I knew that it would be scary for me to be on the other side of the world, especially with my personal context. There's a lot of stuff that was scary to me in India, in general, in a foreign country. But I said to myself, let's not give myself the time to be scared. I'm going to make the decision and deal with the consequences later. And that's what I did. And I ended up finding a lot of opportunities, very, very, very good friendships that I cherish today. And yeah, there is a lot of, I feel like I matured a lot through this experience. There's another one that I want to talk to you guys about. For instance, at the age of 17, I went off to college and I decided to choose a campus that was very far from my home. So I had to live by myself. You know, all of this stuff, I feel like if I hadn't done it, if I had taken too much time to think about it, maybe I would have been scared. But I don't want to feel scared. I want to jump into the decision and then deal with the consequences. I know that this is going to make me grow. I know that I have insane opportunities. Why not jump? Why have regrets? So today, when I had to take a huge decision about the career path that I want to choose, I was able to make the decision because I actually trained this bravery. I didn't wake up one day with the courage to be what I want to be today. I spent years proving to myself that I could actually survive discomfort, that I could stay for a month in a country where I didn't feel like it was a home, that I could stay by myself for a month when my friends gave up on me. You know, all of these situations, you can prove to yourself that you're actually the strongest person in the world by these situations and by everything you go through. So when the big jump came, which is recently when I had to choose my career path, that is completely different from what I've studied so far, I had the cardio for it. Now, the third thing I want to talk to you guys about, it's a very important concept that you have to internalize for this whole idea of taking the big jump and existing to full potential. So that's a concept that's not going to be relevant for everyone, but I think for some people it can definitely help. I'm talking about the fear ratio. If you want to be able to make big decisions, you have to make sure that the fear to not have enough experiences and to not live life to its full potential gets actually bigger than the fear to take the decision. For example, when I went and lived abroad, I was more scared about not having this experience that I've always wanted, not living an adventure, not discovering another culture, than the actual fear of going away and not seeing my family for a month, um, and maybe deal with an administrative system that I didn't know and everything. Okay, so try to be excited about the opportunities rather than scared by it, and try to make your life more about being scared of not living rather than scared of being hurt by an experience. By the way, I think a lot of people nowadays are doing with FOMO. I talked about it in another of my videos because basically I had to leave my hometown for college. So that definitely helped me deal with FOMO because I had to miss out on a lot of stuff. But I think it's something you need to address in order to have this fear ratio be still healthy. Because if you're very, very scared of missing out of stuff in life, you might just try to like accomplish everything, and that's not the idea here. The idea is just I want to experience stuff. Not everything, but I want to make experiences. So if something comes my way that can be beneficial for me, I'm not going to do something stupid, but I'm not going to miss out on a good experience just because I'm scared, or just because it's not like the easiest choice. For me, for example, and I don't know if it's a good motivation, but I think it's something that helps me. But for me, I'm more scared of ending up being 50 and telling my kids, yeah, I didn't have the opportunity to travel. Or being, I don't know, 60 and telling my kids, like, yeah, no, I didn't really have the courage to choose the career path that I wanted. So now I'm a lawyer. You know what I mean? Like, I don't want to be that way. I don't want to live that kind of life. And for me, I would rather go through a bit of hard years, but knowing that the purpose that I'm chasing is actually what's meaningful to me rather than, I don't know, going through a life that doesn't fit me. At the end of the day, again, as I told you first, my life is mine. I get to do whatever I want with it. Now, something that's a little detail slash important point, actually, that I want to talk about is that if some of y'all have watched my previous videos, I've talked about this a tiny bit. But maybe you guys think, yeah, she's talking about taking the big jump because it's easy for her. She probably has a very easy time jumping into the void, and she's a very adventurous person. That's in her veins. That's how it happens. So I do understand that there's a factor that is the personality that you have, and that does make sense. Your experiences do shape you into someone who's more adventurous or someone who prefers safety in different contexts, etc. However, that's not my case. I wasn't born with the ability to just jump in the void. I've talked about it in previous videos, but I have been dealing with OCD for many, many, many years. Undiagnosed OCD actually for many years as well. And it was eating me alive to a point where at some point I could not even get out of the house for years. So I'm not someone who was actually born with this ability to be careless and just jump into the void and be so free-spirited. That's not who I am. I'm someone who's very, very, very anxious in a lot of situations. However, that didn't stop me from training this bravery system, as I told you, from jumping into the void so many times that my personality kind of changed toward that. So for me, it was not about waiting for the OCD to go away so that I can live without a care and actually jump into the decisions that would make sense to me. For me, it was more like two different topics, you know what I mean? Like the OCD is something I deal with, but that's the life that I want to go through. Like I want to live this life. So maybe if OCD was trying to take over my mind, saying, what if you don't succeed? What if it doesn't work out? What if you end up, I don't know, lonely without any success and without any money? I kind of used the fear ratio I talked about earlier to make sure that I was balancing the fear of not succeeding with the fear of not even trying and having to look at myself in the mirror and say I've actually spent my whole life being someone that I'm not. So I think this fear ratio can be useful for people like me. Again, I'm not giving specific advice for people who have OCD because it's a condition. Doctors know how to deal with it more than I do. I'm just talking about my personal experience. And again, like my OCD has been more or less powerful in certain periods of times. And I ensure you that at the period of time where I couldn't get out of the house and I couldn't even have a proper meal, um, it was very hard for me to make those type of decisions. And I haven't really done anything insane or like crazy life decisions in those years because I was just so overwhelmed by the condition that I was dealing with. But it can show you that there's a way out actually. For me, I moved by myself at the age of 17. I moved to India by myself at the age of 19. Um, all of that while dealing with very, very strong OCD by myself because at the time I was still diagnosed but not treated. So I have to say, if I could do that, anyone can do that. Everything's possible, and you are actually able to so much more than you think you are. You have an inner strength, and it doesn't like you don't have to be, like in front of your mirror trying to motivate yourself and realize that you're actually so strong and you're capable of everything. It's not about that. It's literally just about taking the step, and then you'll see that you survive. So as a conclusion, existing is safe, living is expensive. It costs you your comfort zone. So taking the potential out of life means actually using the power that you have on your own timeline, your own existence. I took my power back while making this big life decision about my career path. When are you taking yours? On another detail, I'm thinking about doing a part 2 to this topic because I think it's very, very, very interesting. And I could talk about that for hours. You tell me if you think it's relevant. If you have any other ideas of topics that you would want me to talk about, I would love for you to write it in the comments, and I'll see you soon. And until then, don't forget to try to find meanings in the things that you do and to look beneath the surface.